Hi, everyone. And I'm so glad to see that some of you brought your cocktails in here. I know I've got mine down here. I was a little nervous about having my full glass of wine before I got up on stage, and Denise will tell you why. I tend to go long when I talk, and a glass of wine will not help the situation. So anyway, sorry about that. Long day. I'm Jane Moran. I'm the Global CIO for Thomson Reuters, and we're so happy that you're here tonight. This event is sponsored by Women in Technology International and Thomson Reuters, and we're really just thrilled to have Dr. Sue Black with us tonight. I was completely blown away by reading about her. We've never met. We just met for the first time tonight, and I really feel like I know her now after just doing a little bit of research. She is everywhere online. And I just couldn't believe it. So it's like she's got this site, and I pulled a little bit of her bio for you tonight. It's www.sueblack.co.uk, and it's amazing. She's got links to all of the things that she's done. She's been described as an academic, which is for sure. She's done some coding in C and C++ that I can't even explain to you, and I was a C++ coder, but she's been described as an academic and a social media whirlwind, and it's really true. And like I said, we're really happy to have you here tonight, Sue. She's made significant contributions to the world of computing, and in a number of places, it's been noted that it's for women in computing, but from my perspective, it's computing overall. So you've really made an instrumental impact in our industry, and I'm really looking forward to what you have to tell us tonight about how you've gotten to where you are in your career. Dr. Black is a senior research associate in the Software System Engineering Group at the Department of Computer Science at the University College London. She's also a senior consultant with the Cornerstone Global Associates. Since 1998, Dr. Black has been campaigning for equality and more support for women in technology. And I'm glad to see that we have a mixed gender group here tonight, but and I especially thank the men for joining us tonight, because it's so important to have that support, and it's so important, I think, in what we're doing at Thomson Reuters. I can see this firsthand, to have a gender diverse team, to have a gender diverse organization, and really just diversity in general. But I really feel like to have that difference of opinion is driving innovation and productivity within our own company. And I think that's one of the things that really resonated with me in reading about Dr. Black and what she's done over the years. It's really promoting that diversity, because I think that's really what we're trying to do, is really to help women find a voice in their careers and really help to promote what we're doing within technology and to really find that. One of the things that I know many of you have read about her is that she founded the online networks London BCS Women in 1999. And at this point, BCS Women now has over 1,200 members. She also campaigned from 2008 to 2011 to save Bletchley Park, which actually, the conversation, my husband, Chris, is really into technology. And this was like, he wanted to be here tonight, and we couldn't find a sitter, or he would have been here, because he really wants to meet you. This was, many of you know, but it was the UK World War II Center for Decrypting Enemy Messages. And at one point, it employed over 5,000 women, which I really think is just an amazing thing. And it's an amazing landmark that I'm really happy that we've saved. In 2011, Dr. Black also set up the GoTo Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization which aims to make computer science more meaningful to the public, as well as generate public excitement in the creation of software, and to help build a tech-savvy workforce. And I love this too. This is all about giving back, and it's help building that next generation of technologists for our world. Dr. Black has won a number of awards over the years. There's so many. I just picked a few to mention tonight. She recently won the PepsiCo Women's Inspiration Network Award. She was also named as Tech Hero by IT Pro magazine, which is amazing. She also was awarded the BCS John Ivinson Award in 2009. She was nominated for the Computer Weekly IT Blogs Award in 2009, and she also, in 2010, which I will attest to, won the IT Twitter User of the Year, which you should see her out there in the Twitter sphere. It's amazing. So again, I'm really happy to have Dr. Sue Black here tonight. We have a great group, and she said that it's okay to ask questions during her presentation. So with that, I'd like to welcome Dr. Sue Black.
Oh my goodness, I'm really embarrassed now with all of that. Just sit there blushing and getting redder and redder and redder. Wow. Hello everybody, thank you very much for coming along today. It's so lovely to see you. I'm going to be talking a bit about my life and my passions, which are technology and women in tech, and Bletchley Park as well, which I've been involved with for several years now. So I'm going to start kind of from the beginning, which is like, this was the beginning. So someone asked me recently, when did I first realise that I was a geek? And I kind of thought back and thought, yeah, when did I know that I was a geek? So actually I probably only realised reasonably recently that I was a geek. But I was trying to think of when did I first do geeky kind of things? And I thought back to this kind of age when I was about 7 or 8. And I probably got about sixpence a week pocket money back in the old days. And I used to save up my sixpences to when we used to go shopping at W.H. Smith's. And I used to buy maths textbooks with my pocket money and take them home. And so my favourite thing to do was to go through maths textbooks, solving problems and stuff. So I guess that I was already a geek at this age. Actually, who here would say that they were a geek? Hands up. No, what are you doing here? Good, there's a few of us. Okay, well, you're probably going to think I'm quite weird then if you're not very geeky. So as Jane said, please feel free to stop me if I'm not making sense, or if you want more information or you want to ask me something throughout my talk. I very much enjoy having an interactive talk rather than me just standing going on and on about things I like. And do wait for the microphone as well. There's 2 microphones at the back. If you want to ask a question, just put your hand up. So yeah, when I was 7 or 8, I was already a geek, I guess. And I used to love school. I used to love my maths textbooks and doing maths puzzles. And everything was great. I kind of enjoyed my life, and I enjoyed being very geeky. Kind of fast forward a few years. And when I was 12, unfortunately, my mum died, and that kind of sent our family into turmoil. My dad remarried after a year, and what kind of happened was that I left home and left school when I was 16 because things weren't really very good at home. And I had several jobs over the time from 16 to 20, and then when I was 20, I got married, and this is me here at 23 with 3 children. And kind of at that time, I was sort of right out of education, really. I left school at 16, as I said, with 5 O-levels. And I couldn't really take it any further. I couldn't really go to university. I couldn't really complete my A-levels because I was working in the evenings and at the weekend as a waitress. And I've had some of the best jobs, like waitress, cleaner. I'm just trying to, I guess, show you that I haven't really had a straightforward path in my career. So here I am at 23. I'd left work to have my first daughter when I was 21. And the company that I worked at the time, and the law at the time, was that you had to have worked somewhere, I think, for 2 years for an organisation to have to hold your job open if you left for maternity. And I'd been working at the company for 1 year and 51 weeks, and unfortunately they wouldn't hold my job open. So basically, you know, I went off on maternity leave, I had my daughter, I didn't have a job to go back to, so what I thought the best idea would be to have another baby straight away and then go back to work after the second one. But what happened was I got pregnant again, then I had twins. So at the age of 23, here I am with 3 children under the age of 2.5, and quite busy, as you can imagine. Not really thinking too much about education and kind of and my career, because then, you know, I was very busy looking after my family. Unfortunately, what happened after that was that my marriage broke down. It was quite a strain on both of us at 23, having 3 small kids. So basically we split up, and I ended up moving to another area. But what happened then was that I decided that then, as a single parent with 3 children, I would need to get a job at some point. And I thought, with my 5 O-levels, if I went back to work straight away, I'd probably be on minimum wage or just above. And so I thought that education really was the way to kind of take us out of kind of a bit of a desperate situation, because we had no money. We were on income support and stuff. So what I decided to do was to do a it was called Polymaths course, which was a maths course in the evenings at college, and that gave me university entry. And so I went to university to study computer science at South Bank University in London, and here I am at the age of, I think I was about 30, getting my degree here with my dad, my brother and sister. That's another nice family photo. And it was a great day, because I really felt like I'd managed to achieve something, not only for myself, but also for my children and kind of our future. So at that time, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do when I finished my degree. I thought about becoming a consultant. I also thought about becoming a maths teacher. And I also thought about doing a PhD. And one of the great things about doing my degree, even though it was difficult to start with, because I could only go to lectures between 10 and 2, because I was taking my kids to school and then picking them up after school. At the beginning, they got older, and then they could go to after-school club and stuff, so that made it a bit easier. And towards the end of my degree, my project supervisor asked me if I wanted to do a PhD. And so I said to him, yeah, I'd love to do a PhD. And we kind of carried on the conversation. And then I went out of his office to go and look up what a PhD was, because I didn't know what it was. I knew it was a good thing, but I had no idea what it was. So I realised that if I wanted to become a consultant, I was going to have to work really long hours, and I was still a single parent with 3 reasonably young children. So I decided that probably wasn't the best thing to do. Doing a PhD meant that I had flexibility. I could work from home sometimes. So that was an option. And becoming a maths teacher was also kind of similar in that it was reasonably flexible. And of course, as a maths teacher, I would have had school holidays and stuff, so that would have worked quite well. So I applied for the PhD position, I applied to be a maths teacher, and I got both positions. And then in the end decided that PhD was probably the best thing to do of those 2 options. And so started teaching, which was really scary, going straight from being a final year student into standing in front of a class of, I think it was only 10 students, my first class, but I remember that I didn't sleep the night before because I was so scared about going in to talk to this class. But so I gradually kind of gained confidence and started a PhD, and that was going very well. And basically became an academic, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I did about 6 hours a week, I think, or 8 hours a week teaching, and did my kind of studying and research the rest of the time. So I did that for a few years, and then I got a full-time position at South Bank as a lecturer. So then I was like full-time employee rather than part-time. And that went really well. I started off teaching 10 students, and that kind of built up and up and up. And I didn't really mention at the beginning, but I was extremely shy as a child, which I know is difficult to believe now. But I've kind of worked hard myself to force myself to be more confident, and here we are, I'm standing in front of you today. So I became a lecturer, and then senior lecturer, principal lecturer, And then I got a job at University of Westminster as head of department, so I was head of department there for a while, and now I've moved over to UCL. So alongside my kind of academic career in computing, I've also had this, I guess, ambition to try and do something in the area of women in computing. So when I started my PhD, the first conference that I went to, I was in an area which was formal methods, which is mathematical specification of software, which for me was quite exciting, but I know for many other people doesn't sound very exciting. The first conference I went to, there were about, I guess, 100 people there and about 2 women and 98 men. And my PhD supervisor had told me that when you go to conferences, you must network, you must talk to people, and still being very shy at the time, that was a very difficult thing for me to do. So I decided at this conference that I would find one person and speak to them if it was like the last thing I did. So I was kind of looking around, wondering who's the one person going to be that I'm going to talk to. And one guy gave a really good talk, and he seemed very friendly and approachable. So I went to chat to him during the break, and we had a good chat about stuff, and it was fine. And so I kind of relaxed, thinking, oh, that wasn't so bad. But then for the rest of the conference, every time I turned around, like, he was looking at me, so I got quite freaked out by that. I didn't know why he was looking at me, and I don't know, I just kind of felt quite alone, really, that I didn't know who to talk to about this. And so now, I understand why he was looking at me, but then I really had absolutely no clue at all. And a few months after that, I went to a conference which was Women in Science. It was called Networking the Networks, which was a Women in Science conference in Brussels. And that conference was so different from the Formal Methods conference. I walked into the conference foyer, and there were lots of women in there. And before I even kind of got into the main room, someone had come up to me and said, oh, hi, I'm blah, 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 blah. Who are you? What are you doing here? And we ended up chatting, and then we got chatting to some other people. And so it was a very kind of much more relaxed atmosphere. I mean, just like it was outside just now. You don't feel so worried about going up and talking to people because you know, hopefully, that everyone's going to be reasonably friendly towards you. So that was the atmosphere at this conference, which was like about 98% women and 2% men. And I came back from that thinking, wouldn't it be really cool if I could go into that environment in some way now and again, and if I wanted to ask questions or talk to somebody, if there was a group of people or of women that I could talk to about that. So basically, that ended up being BCS Women, the group that I set up. I set up a group for London in 1998. And then that was so popular, we ended up in the Daily Mirror, and I got people from all over the country asking if they could join the group. And so I set up BCS Women, which is national and international, in 2001. And that's basically an online network where it's like a friendly environment that it's all female, that you can just ask any questions you want. So there were questions, even at the beginning, from women asking, what should I wear at an interview? So from kind of very reasonably mundane questions through to very technical kind of Unix questions and everything in between. So that's kind of something that's continued and is still going. So that's 11 years now. And even though I'm not chairing it or running it anymore, it's still got the same kind of family, best friend kind of environment, even like 11 years later. So I'm very proud that I'd set that up. So being chair of BCS Women led me in, I think, about 2003 to go to Bletchley Park. Has everyone heard of Bletchley? Who hasn't heard of Bletchley Park? Okay. So Bletchley Park is the place where the code breakers worked during the Second World War. Have you heard of Enigma? And you know about the obviously the secret messages that were sent between different people during the war. So Bletchley Park is a place where they cracked the codes. And so in the UK, we read the messages that were being sent between, like the German High Command, for instance. So the work that was done there was said to have shortened World War II by 2 years. And at that time, 11 million people a year were dying. So potentially the work that was done there saved 22 million lives. So I didn't realise that when I went up there. I kind of, in my mind, Bletchley Park was a place where code breakers worked, and to me a code breaker was like a sort of 50 or 60-year-old man with a tweed jacket, kind of smoking a pipe, who kind of sat round doing the Times crossword with his friends. And so I had this idea that it would be quite a small place with, you know, it would have been a small place with just some old blokes there, basically. There's nothing wrong with old blokes, but that's kind of the mental image that I had of what it would be like there. So I went up for a BCS Women meeting, and I went to the meeting and afterwards went for a look round because it's a 26-acre site, so it's very large. And as I walked around, I saw these guys rebuilding what I found out then was the bomb machine. So the bottom, this picture here. So this is a rebuild of the bomb machine, which was one of the machines that was used to kind of crank out the results of the messages. So I saw this guy rebuilding the bomb machine and asked him what he was doing. So he told me about that. And he said, well, why are you here? I said, I'm representing this group for women in computing. And he said, oh, did you know that more than half the people that worked here were women? So I was like, no, because I've got this idea of these like blokes in their 50s. I said, how many people worked here? And he said, more than 10,000. So I was like, really? You know, I couldn't believe it. And being a woman in technology and wanting to promote and support women in technology, I just thought, well, I've got to, if I don't know about it, then surely hardly anybody knows about it, right? Because I'm kind of up to speed, I thought I was, on all these things. So I went away thinking, I've got to try and promote the work done by the women here during the Second World War. So I eventually raised funds for the Women of Station X project, and that was like an oral history project. Because no one really knew what the women had done, and most people didn't know that anybody had done, you know, what anyone had done there, because it was kept so secret after the war. So it was all about getting women to talk about what their role was there and what happened there. So here's some photos of Bletchley Park here with the mansion house and one of the code-breaking huts. So at the launch of the Women of Station X project, I gave my little talk about, you know, what we'd done and why I thought it was important. And Simon Greenish, who was the CEO then of Bletchley Park, gave a talk, and he basically said that Bletchley Park were teetering on a financial knife edge. So they were just about making ends meet, but basically he was worried about their financial situation. And so I kind of thought to myself, well, that's not right, you know, that why is it that Bletchley Park is in that sort of situation, when to me it's like one of the most important places in Europe, if not the world, for the work that was done there and all those lives saved. So not long after that, I went up for a reception at Bletchley Park and did a tour. And I had this moment where I was kind of standing in front of Hut 6, which is this hut here with the blue tarpaulin over it. And one of the veterans was telling us all about the sort of major code-breaking achievements that happened in that hut. And you know, the whole thing about 11 million people a year dying, and the work done there at Bletchley Park shortening the war by 2 years. And I just had this moment where I thought, well, this isn't right. Why is this place like having financial troubles? If it was in another country, surely the government would be looking after it, or something. You know, they wouldn't be in that sort of situation. So basically, I went away that day with having taken the photo of the hut, and there was a petition on the 10 Downing Street website at the time asking the government to help save Bletchley Park by giving them funding. And at the time I was head of computer science department at University of Westminster. And so I was on an email list for all heads and professors of computer science in the country. So I emailed all the heads and professors and said, please sign this petition. I think it's really important. Put a photograph of the hut and said, you know, they don't have enough money to survive. Can you help? And please sign the petition. So I sent this email around, and then about 3 or 4 hours later, I had a look at the petition website, and in those days, the petition website for number 10 had the names of everybody that signed it. I think now you just have there's just a number. like a counter for how many people have signed it, but then you actually saw people's names. And so I looked at the list, and there are all these really famous professors of computer science from around the country that I kind of think, oh my God, I'm not worthy. They'd all signed it. So I was like, oh my goodness, it's not just me that's upset about this, and other people are as well. And so basically I set up a blog, and that's what this is here. And that was kind of the beginning of a campaign to save Bletchley Park. And what happened was we wrote, after the feedback from the petition, we wrote a letter to a letter to the Times, and asked all the heads and professors to sign it, and 97 of them did. And so they all signed the letter. It was going to go in the Times, and I just thought, well, actually, that's a really good story. I'm going to contact all the journalists that I know and ask them if they can help. And Rory Keflin-Jones, the BBC technology correspondent, was one of those people. And luckily, he thought it was a good story. And so basically, he interviewed me at Bletchley Park, saying I thought it was a disgrace, and I was ashamed to be British, I think, and that we should really do something about it. And yeah, I guess that was really the beginning of the campaign. So the getting on the BBC and kind of traditional media approach was really good in that I got emails from people all over the world, and the story went all over the world. But what happens with traditional media is you get a big spike of interest, and then of course you get a big drop as it kind of the interest goes away, because there's another news story, and you can't send in the same news story every week. So I was just trying to think, how on earth can we keep this story kind of in the press, or just in kind of public consciousness? How can we just kind of keep banging on about it, basically, to get people aware of the situation? And so a few months after the BBC interview, I started using Twitter in earnest. Actually, how many people here are on Twitter? Cool, that's more than half, that's great. So, as you probably know, Twitter's quite good for finding people that you want to find and that you probably couldn't reach through traditional routes. And it's also quite good for kind of building a community around any kind of given interest that you have. And so we started using Twitter to raise awareness of Bletchley Park. And I was kind of thinking, who would be interested, which kind of celebrity would be interested in Bletchley Park? And I kind of had this in the back of my mind for a while. And then I saw this photo here of Stephen Fry stuck in a lift in Centre Point. And I saw that on Twitter, and I thought, Stephen Fry, he must be interested in Bletchley Park. Because, it's kind of, that's the sort of stuff that he really loves, right? Technology, history. I just thought he must be interested. So luckily he was following me, and I was following him, so I could send him direct messages. So I sent him, I think, about 3 direct messages saying, please help Bletchley Park. Please have a, read my blog, and you can, find out what the situation is. I think if you helped out, it would make a massive difference. So my blog was getting about 50 hits a day from people around the country, and amazingly, Stephen Fry tweeted a link to my blog the next day, and instead of 50 hits on my blog, I got 8,000. And at that time, he had 220,000 followers. But now, as you can see, well, this is a couple of months ago, I think, so now he's got 5 million, which is just like a crazy amount of followers. So he was wonderful. So he tweeted about it, and he also came up to Bletchley Park for the day, so I got to meet him. And he's a really lovely guy, and he's been very supportive and has kind of been active in promoting stuff that Bletchley Park are doing. Yeah, kind of in an ongoing way, so that's very cool. So sometime after that, I was at an event at Nesta, and just before that, do you all know about the Turing papers? Yeah, so some of Alan Turing's papers. So do you all know who Alan Turing is? No. So he's a code breaker and a mathematician that works at Bletchley Park, and has also been called the father of computer science. So hopefully the geeks in the audience will have heard of him. It's his centenary this year, so it's 100 years since he was born this year. So some of his papers had come up for sale at Christie's, and the guide price was, I think, £300,000 to £500,000. And a guy called Gareth Harfacree, who's another Bletchley Park fanatic like me, had set up a Just Giving account to try and raise the money so that Bletchley Park could buy the papers, because Alan Turing worked there. And we all felt that Bletchley Park was the right place for his papers to be on display. So he set up a Just Giving account, and after a couple of weeks, he'd raised £20,000, which was really amazing from the public. And I kind of had in the back of my mind that I wanted to try and make it happen, try and enable Bletchley Park to buy the Turing papers. So I was at a talk at Nesta, and Megan Smith, who's a Google VP, was one of the speakers. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go and ask Megan at the end of the talk if she can help Bletchley Park buy the Turing papers. And I went up to talk to her at the end, and I said, Bletchley Park, blah, blah. And she hadn't heard of Bletchley Park, and she hadn't heard of Turing. But she was interested in what I was saying and said, send me an email. So I sent her an email all about Bletchley Park and about the Turing papers and why I thought it was important. And the next day, coincidentally, a guy called Simon Meacham from Google got in touch with me via Twitter and said he wanted to help with Bletchley Park in some way, because he was a big fan. And so I told Simon at Google about Megan at Google, and kind of put them in touch with each other. I mean, I think they knew each other already, but I sent Simon the email that I'd sent Megan, and basically the two of them managed to get $100,000 for Bletchley Park to buy the Turing papers, So $100,000 wasn't enough to completely buy the Turing papers. I went along to the auction, and at the beginning of the auction, so the guide price was $300,000 to $500,000. So at the beginning of the auction, I knew that Bletchley Park had about $100,000, and they had the $100,000 from Google and the £20,000 from the Just Giving account, so about £100,000, but the guide price was about £300,000. So I kind of sat in the auction wondering what was going to happen, and basically the papers didn't get to the reserve price, so there was no sale. But Bletchley Park and Google and other organisations came together to make sure that the papers did go to Bletchley Park. And so this is my blog from the day at Bletchley Park. This is the papers at Bletchley Park when they first arrived, and they're now on display there if anybody wants to go and see them. So one of the favourite things that I've got from being involved with Bletchley Park is going up to the annual Veterans Day. So more than 10,000 people work there, and more than half of them were women. And there's an annual Enigma reunion in September every year. And so this is some of the veterans here that you can see having a nice time there. Yes?
Do I need a microphone?
Yeah.
Thanks, Gus. I was just wondering
Yeah.
if many of the women had worked in anything related to computing or anything like that before they started working in Bletchley Park, and if you ever heard any stories of sort of how they got chosen to work there in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, actually, I think what surprised me was that most of them were actually teenagers or in their early 20s. And so most of them went straight from school, actually. So like at age 17 or 18 up to 20. And many of them were like recommended by their headmaster at school or from a local club or something. So actually, I think most of the women there didn't have any computing experience at all. But women were thought to have a very good attention to detail. And it was, you know, extremely detailed work that they did. And I guess young women would have faster minds. And from my age, I know that my brain worked a bit quicker when I was in my 20s. So, I mean, maybe sort of young, kind of bright, good at doing puzzles women were kind of the best for that kind of work.
It actually makes you smile that you say that about women having attention to detail, because I was talking to one of our male technology leaders here the other day about women in working in technology.
Yeah.
The first thing he said is, I like women in my team because they've always got better attention to detail. So some things don't change, apparently.
Yeah, so again, it's amazing, isn't it? If you just think about, it's more than 5,000 women, but like really young women, kind of just left school, working, not able to tell anybody what they're doing at all. And so I put this slide in of the veterans because my favourite story relates to some of the people here. I was at the veterans dinner talking to some of the women who'd been there like when they were like 16, 18, 20, about what they did there. And I said, so what did you get up to outside of work, when you weren't kind of in this sort of hut, working under secrecy, unable to talk about it. And one of them said, oh, do you remember that time, to another one, do you remember that time when we nicked the vicar's bicycle to go to a dance? So I thought, okay, this is kind of more of the story that I want to hear about, actually, what they got up to outside in the kind of hijinks kind of stuff. And another lady said that lots of them were billeted out at Woburn Abbey, so they're living at Woburn Abbey, and apparently they're used to sunbathe topless on the roof. And yeah, it's like when you look at these ladies, that's not what you think of. So it was quite cool, kind of sitting there and them telling me these stories. And so they used to sunbathe topless on the roof, and apparently the local RAF base couldn't understand why their pilots were flying low over Woburn Abbey, and then they found out it was because they were trying to get a peep at at the topless sunbathing on Woburn Abbey. So, even in wartime, some people have fun. So I put that slide in just so I could tell that story, because that's one of my favourite Bletchley Park stories. So I thought I'd see at this point if everyone's still awake, because I've been rambling on for a while. So I thought I'd have a bit of a quiz with some photos of, for me, like kind of some of my tech heroes. So this is someone that's related to Bletchley Park. I wonder if anybody knows who that is. If anyone does, I'll be really shocked. So her name's Dina St Johnston, and what amazed me one time when I was at the National Museum of Computing at Bletchley Park, which you all must visit too, is that she set up the world's first software house. So the first software house in the world was set up by this woman, Dina St Johnston, and we've never heard of her. So I think that's a bit of a shame, but also it means that I try and talk about her whenever I can, because the women have done amazing things, and we just don't know about it, and we should really be celebrating what they have done. Does anybody know who this is? Not a woman. Does anybody know who? You might have guessed who this is. No. Tommy Flowers. Has anybody heard of Tommy Flowers? Shame on you. Tommy Flowers is the inventor of Colossus, which is the world's first programmable digital computer. And he invented that as part of the code-breaking effort at Bletchley Park. And it's one of the world's first computers, so we should all know about him too. Does anybody know this?
It's Steve Shirley.
Yeah.
And she actually started a company back in the late 60s that employed all women, and she ended up selling her company about 20 years later for a
lot of money.
£100,000,
Yeah.
something like that, like crazy, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Steve Shirley, who I chatted to last week, is an amazing woman. She came over to England, I think, about the age of 6 as a Hungarian refugee, and without her parents, and basically has kind of been on her own since then, I think, from what she says. And she's just an absolutely wonderful, formidable, fabulous woman. The reason that she's called Steve, so she's still called Steve Shirley, is that in the 1960s, she was trying to get a job, or maybe it was the 50s, trying to get a job in computing or that kind of area and not getting very far. So her husband suggested that she change her name from Stephanie on her CV to Steve to see if that made any difference, using a man's name instead of a woman, or a non-specific gender name. And what happened was she got a job when she changed her name, which is very depressing. Hopefully that wouldn't happen now. Definitely not at Thomson Reuters, right? So she set up a company called F International, which mainly employed women working at home, programming. and she sold that for 150 million some years later. So an absolute role model, I think, for us. And just, to me, the fact that 50 years ago she was doing this, having, you know, employing women working at home. We're not there now, are we? I mean...
We need to replicate this.
Yeah, no,
Seriously.
absolutely. Just a complete trailblazer. And we haven't, I think she was more than 50 years ahead of her time, basically. Just absolutely incredible woman. So, does everybody watch Little Britain? Yeah, good. Okay, so you might know this sketch where anybody that says anything to the lovely lady behind the desk gets the answer at some point. Computer says no. And I think this kind of, in a way, typifies our attitude. Well, obviously not us. Well, obviously not the geeks here anyway. But most people, I think, still have a bit of a negative attitude towards technology and computing. I've kind of found during my career that if anyone asks me what I do and I talk about computing, they either say, "Can you fix my computer or my printer?" or they say, you know, like the computing's a bad thing, because what about all those big government IT projects that fail and a waste of taxpayers' money and blah, blah, blah. And you know, if you're a computing person, then either you're boring or you're a boffin or you're both. And that's not, you know, the boffin wasn't a complimentary, I don't think. So basically it's been quite a negative attitude towards me, towards computing, maybe towards me as well. And so I think there is this kind of computer says no attitude that people have in this country, which to me is crazy, because technology is the future, and the more we understand it, the better future we're going to have, in my opinion. So just recently I've, as Jane said at the beginning, set up a non-profit to promote computing to the general public. And so when I was thinking about setting up the company, I was thinking, what's, you know, about our heritage in the UK, our technology heritage, and our kind of innovation and invention heritage. And I've just talked about some of the kind of pioneers of that in this country, who are my heroes. And thinking back, I think during the Industrial Revolution, the UK was one of the leaders in the Industrial Revolution because of our kind of amazing invention and creativity in innovation in this country that we do have. And so that was the Industrial Revolution then. Now we're in the digital revolution, and to me, technology is the great enabler of all of those things. So even if we are inventive and creative, if we don't have technology skills, we can't kind of leverage that at all to innovate in this country. And I think innovation is so important these days. So I've set up the Go-To Foundation, and the whole idea is that we need everyone, so like the general public, to be a bit more tech savvy, because the more that they understand technology and can use it, then they can use that wherever they are to innovate in their own space. And so I kind of see it as a, whatever this is, I don't know what this is, not a spiral, is it, but a kind of a knock-on effect. So if we get people to understand technology a bit more, then those people will start using their knowledge in whatever space they're in. And then whether they're working in a shop or for the local council, or they've got their own startup, or they work for a big organisation, wherever they are, they're going to be using technology to innovate in whatever they do. And so if we get all those people in all those organisations innovating, then that will boost the economy and increase our standard of living. And basically, to me, in a nutshell, technology is the future, and technology is what's going to be the kind of deciding factor in whether, as a country, we succeed or fail over the next 5 or 10 years. So, as part of the Go-To Foundation, what I really wanted to do at the beginning was a kind of, I guess, proof of concept. I wanted to show that that anybody can interact and kind of get hands-on with technology in some way. And so what we did was run an event at a primary school where we had a whole day of technology. So we had 3 workshops with 90 7 to 9-year-old kids. So 3 different classes of 7 to 9-year-old kids doing 3 different workshops. So one was working with Raspberry Pi, learning to program Raspberry Pi. One was Apps for Good, running a workshop in how to develop an app. And one was learning to code in Scratch, which is like drag and drop programming. And so we held that over a day. Then we got the parents in at the end. Okay, and I've got a video to show you, but I can't get it. Oh no, there it is. What I really wanted to do was, from my software engineering background, bring together the hardware, the software and the design all together so that people get more of an idea of the kind of holistic picture of what technology is all about, rather than just kind of partitioning everything all the time. You need people to see the whole picture for them to understand it and appreciate it, and then they'll enjoy it so much more. And yeah, we need this in primary schools, we need it in secondary schools, we need it out there, we need programs on TV, we need people to understand this stuff.
The wonderful thing about today is it's been innovative, it's been really hands-on, it's been creative, they've been able to do a bit of role play, develop games, see how the inside of the computer works and start to see different bits of coding. It's just been fantastic to have so many different groups come together who are clearly all excited.
Before a certain age, there is no gender difference. It's later on this starts to be seen as a sort of geeky boy type thing. There starts to become more of a gender imbalance, perhaps, in some schools some of the time. So at primary school, when you've got a whole gang of them, let's just get on and code something up and have a play with this. This is perfect age to start this sort of thing, it really is. So we've just sort of sown seeds of ideas and we hope that they're going to germinate in the terms ahead.
This is not just about getting them to do computer science, this is about getting them to be innovative in the way they learn about lots of different things, and that computers are just one of the ways they can learn those different disciplines.
I think what's nice is watching the different groups. It's all different pieces of the puzzle that come together, and it's lovely to see how something that started quite spontaneous and could have been really quite disparate has come together in a sort of holistic day, and hearing the kids see how they see that all join up. So absolutely, first of many great things.
I think what got me is the fact that because we've got the technology now that's able to cater to people's different interests, and you have a diversity, and yet our education system is standardised, this is kind of transformational, it's game-changing, especially as it's been done in the primary school.
My name's Pam Dryden and I'm lucky enough to be the head teacher of St Matthew's Primary School in Surbiton. And today we've had a fantastic tech day where the children have been designing their own computer programs and really finding out how computers work. Many of the computer programs we've used to date don't actually teach children the thread of how to build, but this is a chance for them really to understand how something works, and if it doesn't work, to problem solve and figure out a way of making it work.
Okay, everyone. Fantastic ideas. I think they're ready for the next step.
So the next step is you've got a whole list full of problems. So what I'd like you to do now is in your groups talk about the problems and pick one.
So I think they need 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Alright, 3 minutes.
I'm Debbie Stubbington, I'm the ICT coordinator, and I've just been watching the children have a wonderful time all day. The apps activity, we thought will fit in with any topic that the children are doing. We can do that in lots of different ways. And Raspberry Pis are just such fun, and actually it reminds me of the days when I first started teaching, where you had the BBC Bees and you'd sit and you'd type in lines of code. It's been a great day and the children have had a wonderful time, and I think the parents have really appreciated it as well, being able to join in with all the activities.
My name's Sam Aldred. I'm a trainee teacher in my first year at Roehampton University, and we've been bringing Scratch, a computer program, into school. It was a mixed year at 3 and 4 class, and we just started with the basics. It was basic programming, like moving them around and things like that. Some outcomes were brilliant. It varied quite a lot, but some absolutely flew. There was a lot of experimenting. No, it was really good. We had some perfect start to finish games, so controlling a sprite, catching some others, and it was really good.
I'm here with the Apps for Good people. Sat, how do you think the day's gone?
The youngest we ever taught is 13 years old, so this is a lot younger, and I have to say I was pleasantly surprised. The great thing about them is that they've got so much more energy, and just having a place to focus that, it's great to see that they're willing to do that as well. I think enthusiasm was through the roof. Never seen a class as enthusiastic as that, which was awesome to see. I'd also say that I don't think they've had many opportunities to do something like this at such a young age, so because of that, they took it quite seriously as well.
So, Mrs. Strong, did you have a good time today?
Yes, it was fantastic. The kids have enjoyed all 3 workshops. It was really interesting to see them just explore and experiment. Seeing them just working within teams as well and just bouncing ideas off each other. It was just lovely to see.
I'm here with Pete Woods from RS Components.
Fantastic day. Really surprised about how smart these kids are. The whole idea behind today was to show them how when they write something in a program and they execute it, actually something happens.
Yeah.
So we got them to write a piece of code to tell it to turn the light on and then to turn it off. So it was a very basic thing, but they were very excited about it and it was great. The problem today is that technology is handed to kids on a plate. They don't actually understand how it works. So if we don't get kids encouraged again back at the grassroots level of how these things actually work, before we know it, we're going to have no electronics engineers, we're going to have no computer science guys, no computer programmers. That's a real shame.
Everyone involved has had a brilliant, brilliant day. It just goes to show that if you present stuff in the right way, people love it. People are interested in computer science. They are interested in technology. They just don't know yet that they are. But I think we need to do more of this. Do we need a revolution? Yes, we do. There's so much goodwill around all of this. The teachers love it. The schools love it. The technology companies want us all to be engaged. The kids are enjoying it. So, yeah, why don't we have a revolution that shake it all up and do a bit more of this? Right, hopefully I'm back to the presentation. So that day was absolutely amazing. We thought it was going to be good, but actually it really was amazing. And some of the cool things that happened that we hadn't thought about before the day was that before the day we had various meetings with the teachers building up to what we were going to do, and they basically admitted to us that they were quite scared because ICT in schools is not really computing. And so lots of teachers know the ICT stuff, but they don't know about the computer science stuff. And so what was great on the day was that the teachers went from being scared of what was going to happen to, you know, within 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, they were joining in and enjoying it too. So that was wonderful. And they kind of went from being very frightened to absolutely loving it very quickly. The head of ICT at the school before the event said, you know, we don't teach programming because, you know, they're primary school age and, you know, maybe they're a bit young. But then after the one-day event, when the kids had done some scratch programming and programming the Raspberry Pis, they're now teaching programming from year 3 upwards. So that's all the kids from age 7 upwards are now learning programming in the school. And it just went really well. The Apps for Good session, so learn to develop an app within an hour. So they were amazing, Apps for Good. They took a class of 30 kids, showed them kind of what an app was. I think quite a few of them had an idea anyway, probably because their parents have got smartphones. And so they showed them what an app was, gave them an example, got them to think up an app of their own, and then got them to tell the other people on their table what their app was. And then the 5 kids on a table decided which their favourite app was of all the suggestions of their friends around the table. And then, as you saw from the pictures, they started drawing out the user interface for the app and also writing down the kind of program logic for the app. And that's 7-year-olds were doing that and having fun doing it. And I just found it absolutely amazing. And like Sat said, the youngest kids they'd taught to do that before were 13, but here he was with 7-year-olds and they could do it too. So, you know, I think if 7-year-olds can do it, then anybody can do it, right? Anybody can understand this stuff. And so that event proved really popular when people heard about it across the country. Now everyone wants us to go and run it at their school, which we can't do, but we're putting together an online resource so that people can run their own Go-To Tech Days. And that's part of what we're doing with the Go-To Foundation. Also, the next stage for us is putting together something like this, but for adults, Because I think, again, if 7-year-olds can do it, then anybody can do it. So if we want adults in this country to understand technology a bit more, they don't have to become programmers. But, you know, if we did that in one day with 7 to 9-year-olds, we could do that in one day with adults, right? Why would we not do that? So that's what we're working on at the moment. So, I mean, basically, that's all from me. I really wanted to tell you about my personal experience, because I find, particularly with female audiences, that we all want to know what everyone else has done, you know, and how they did it. So that's why I kind of include that sort of thing at the beginning of my talks. And I hope you now share my passion, if you didn't beforehand, for technology and want to promote women in technology. And that's a picture of me and my kids now grown up, and one more now, so I've got 4 kids now, a couple of years ago at my son's graduation. So that's it from me. Thank you.
You guys, thank you very much for attending, and we have, do you guys want to ask some questions? I do think we have some questions out here.
Hi, my name is Nora, and I'm 35, and I'm 7.15% geek, according to an online test.
Yeah.
But I've ended up, I work for Lipper, that's a part of Thomson Reuters, and I kind of ended up here by chance because of my language skills, and then I ended up working with data, and I went, oh, I quite like this. And then I was working with a guy who did Excel macros, and he used to annoy me. I'm like, why are you doing this stuff? Can you not just do what you're supposed to do? And then he left, and I realized that, well, actually, the stuff that he's done is actually quite handy. And then I got into writing macros, and I've learned stuff. So I'm thinking, okay, I've got something here. But so I'm 35, and you've got these kids who are learning stuff, and I suppose what I'm looking for is like an inspirational message that says it's okay if you've got... there's so many people who say, well, if you've got the right attitude, that will take you really far. But you've got kids who are 12 and they're coding, they're hacking into NASA systems from their bedrooms. And I'm like, what have I got against them? And I suppose I kind of... Maybe want some encouraging advice that it's okay if I've got some coding skills, and I've done courses at Open Uni. So if I have some coding skills, is that enough for me to go out and send out my CV and say, I can do a little, but I've got a lot of attitude? And I suppose if you could maybe comment on that, or anyone else in this room, because I'm sure that we've got kind of technology people at different levels. So are there jobs for someone who can code a little?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think these days there are so many jobs in technology, so probably Jane would be a good person to talk to. Maybe you can answer that better than I can, really.
I don't know if I've got such a booming voice, but I will hop up here and say I'm a huge advocate for, it's not just having the programming skills, which I think is really important, and technology is super important, but you need to understand what business outcome you're trying to solve. So you do have it over the 12-year-olds, right? You got to know that, like, they're not in tune with their, I've got a 12-year-old. You've got to, there's a combination of that skill set. And I think actually, for those of us that have come up an unconventional path, like Dr. Black, and myself, my first job out of college, I was a business analyst. But I like computers, and I was that geek that was like, you know, I was the DOS girl. I'm aging myself now. But, you know, that was really important, was to understand how the business worked and to have the technology skills. And I don't think that has gone away. I think that's really important. I think what everyone needs to have, not just you, because I think it's a great question, and I think it's something on everybody's mind, is to have the confidence to know that you have that skill set. You've lived that life. You've had that experience. You're 35. You've had all of those things that have happened before, and you understand the technology. And that's really a special skill set, and you should embrace that. And I think there's a lot of jobs out there. And if you come up later, give me your card, right? This is how you make connections. Is it something like this? Get out there and just, you know, meet people, because that's how you're going to find the next opportunity.
Yep.
Thank you. Taking us back to Bletchley Park, I wonder what the team at Bletchley Park would have made of the so-called pigeon code, and would they have cracked it by now?
I'm dying to know what that says. And I've actually, because I'm now friends with some of the code breakers, so Captain Jerry Roberts, who was one of the code breakers working at Bletchley Park, has seen it. And so he's been, you know, he's 92, he's been sitting at home trying to crack the code, and is, you know, very disappointed and frustrated that he can't do it. So I'm sure we're going to find out at some point, and I'm really, really hoping that it's not a setup, you know. But hopefully it is authentic. And yeah, I can't wait to see what it says. But it's probably something really mundane, isn't it? I don't know. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Tapua. I'm not a techie, but I'm a recruiter for a technology company. Somewhere in your presentation, I mentioned that you're saying that people are not going to be studying IT or computer science in university anymore, which of course is going to be a big problem if technology is going to be the future. So what is it that we're going to do to get people interested in studying IT or computer science in university?
Did I say that people won't be studying it in university? No, I don't think so. But or did I?
Well, people are not going to study that anymore.
No, I mean, I think people will always be studying computing. Probably the numbers will grow of people studying computing at university. But I also think that people that won't be going to university to study computing, it's good for them to have some knowledge of technology as well, and how they can use it to do, you know, whatever they're doing in their workplace. So as an example, I was chatting to a guy who was definitely very geeky some time ago, and he was telling me about his girlfriend, who he said is just not interested in that stuff at all. She works as an office manager for a company. And he said, without him prompting her at all, she'd found out about Code Academy. I don't know if you know about Code Academy, but basically it's a website where you learn how to program, kind of like incrementally. So she'd found that site on her own and started doing the like tutorials on Code Academy. And within about 3 weeks, she'd realised how some of the things that they did at work could be changed, because she now knew a bit more about how software worked and what coding was. And it kind of, you know, I think it just kind of, lots of people don't even know what software is, and that's not their fault because no one's ever told them, right? So just having an understanding that software is basically like a list of instructions, really, and just kind of getting over some really fundamental concepts helps people to realise that it's not some scary thing that they don't know. It's something that even if they don't become a programmer, they can just learn a bit about, and that helps them to understand how they can use that kind of thinking in whatever they do. Code Academy.
Hi, my name is Rachel, and I'm currently building my startup, which is within the tech industry. But I was very much interested in your tech event for adults, and I wanted to know how, because I just started learning programming myself, and I just wanted to know how I can keep updated, with it, how I can get access to more information on when the event for the adults.
What we're going to do?
Yeah,
so please sign up on the GoTo Foundation website, which I think is the URL, gotofoundation.org at the bottom. You can click there to be put on our newsletter list, basically, and then we'll keep you updated with what we're doing. Thank you. Yeah, go to fdn.org. Thank you.
Hi there.
Hi.
I wonder what we can do to try and close the gap now, because you're doing some great work with, and I've also been working on the Apps for Good program as well.
Cool.
But, you know, I head a mobile development team here, and of the 25 guys that I have, we have just hired one female. We're now looking for more, obviously, in the new year, but it's just so hard. The resumes that we find all the time are, you know, 99% male. And it's great what you're doing now, but how can we kind of close the gap? Basically now, all the stuff you're doing is for the school kids and coming up through the ages now, but there's almost a real gap or void that we need to fill today with technology resources.
Well, so that's kind of what we want to do in terms of the whole idea is to get people a bit more tech savvy, and then hopefully from that they will go on and do something else. So in a way it's kind of trying to just inspire them and show what the possibilities are. So it's going to be probably, something like the Go To Tech Day, but aimed at adults, and obviously in a day or a couple of days they're not gonna be like, expert programmers or anything, but it's to kind of give them a flavour and an understanding of what maybe would be, what they could do, and also to kind of handhold them over that awful kind of bridge from thinking everything is too scary and I'm not clever enough to thinking, oh, okay, I see what that is, kind of just get them over that bridge and then into something else. So, I don't know if it'll have an immediate effect, but hopefully it'll get more people just understanding how important technology is and that it's not something really scary and that they can learn more about it. And, eventually, after a few years, hopefully, you'll get more people. Okay.
How do we get more men along to these events?
Oh, God, I don't know. Don't say it's a Women in Technology event. I mean, what I've ended up doing with kind of stuff that I've done with the BCS in organising events is to have events around issues that everybody is interested in, so not specifically, don't make it like women, women, women. So events that anyone in technology maybe would be interested in, but then have lots of female speakers. If you're having a panel, have more than 50% women. If you're having a speaker, get a woman if you can. Kind of do it that way. That for me is kind of working the best out of the various ways to do it, because then with BCS talks we seem to be getting a much more mixed audience. If you go on about women, men won't come. They just don't. They're like, ah. What are they going to say? Yeah, well, I understand, because it's like the reversal of me going into that conference as a shy PhD student and thinking, oh God, I've got to talk to someone. It shouldn't be scary, but somehow it just is. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Julia, and I have a question. I don't know whether anyone else has the same, not challenge, problem. I'm enthusiast for technology, but I have to admit that I have no technical skills when it comes to coding. And I can see the technology is very fast evolving, and is this big space which I understand only the edges of, and I really would like to get closer to real understanding of practical implication of technology and to know a bit of coding. And I don't know where to start because there's so much going on. And I know that there might be some tech days for adults, but if you can give me any advice where to start when it comes to coding, and what is the best small point of beginning of my future IT career.
Well, I think, like I said before, code academies, if you want to just have a go at coding, you start very, very simple. It's for people who don't have any coding skills at all, and it basically teaches you to program. So that would probably be a good place to start, and kind of look around for technology-related events that you think might be interesting, because then you'll end up meeting other people that are interested too, and then you'll kind of get a network of people that are probably all doing the same sort of thing, and then they'll have suggestions and you'll have suggestions, and I would kind of do it that way.
There is also a lot more to technology than just coding.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a mindset. They've got to be able to code, they've got to sit there and blood, sweat and code, and they live in a cave and don't come out. That is not the case. You can be involved in technology in other areas as well.
Yeah, it's probably actually these days quite a small proportion of people involved in technology are actually sitting coding all day. But I haven't done any coding for 10 years or something, so
Hi. First of all, you've done such great works. You've done quite a lot, and you've got 4 kids. I don't know how you manage it.
Nor do I.
Yes. Well, I'm 26. I'm in my second job after university, and I really, really love my job. It's quite techy, do a bit of support, a little bit of development as well. But it's also quite nice to do other things, just work. Like, I was really into like computing societies. I joined the BCS as well while I was at university, but it'd be quite nice to do something outside of work, not just working long hours, but to do something else, like helping promote technology for women and stuff. So how do you manage this? And then how can I do something towards what you're doing as well?
Well, come and talk to me afterwards if you want to help out. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I would just say, just follow your interests and follow your passions, and then you'll find the right place. I mean, I've talked about the stuff that I've done, but it's not like I knew at the beginning that I didn't know at the beginning I'd be doing anything. It's all very, very incremental, and this happened, then that happened, then that happened, and it's kind of. So it's fine to just do one little thing, and then that builds into something, and it just kind of carries on. And I think if you are following your passions, then you end up in the right place.
Hi, my name's Els Holfirm, and I'm a talent acquisition director for a big IT company as well. But I'm also the very proud mother of a little girl who's 10, who's a maths genius. Well, I think she's a maths genius anyway.
Yeah, all my children are geniuses as well.
She's really good at maths, and I absolutely love the work that you've done with the schools. My question really is, what's happening at governmental level? What's happening with the Department of Education? Do you have any links with them so that they start to realise that actually we've got to start a lot earlier? Because what you said, what the teachers do in the ICT classes is disappointing.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, they have reasonably recently changed their attitude towards it. So I know, like this time last year, I think Michael Gove was saying we shouldn't teach computing at schools. It's too difficult, and I can't remember exactly, but something like they should only learn it from 16 or from 14 or something. And then 2 months later, he was saying we should teach computing in schools. So we kind of did like a 180-degree about turn, which doesn't really inspire confidence. But I mean, he got to the right place in the end, which the right opinion, which is we should be teaching computing in schools. And so there's been lots of discussion about ICT and everything over the last year. And I mean, basically various groups are lobbying him to make sure the right thing happens. But I think it's a difficult time for ICT teachers, definitely, because I think the whole kind of, the way that it's happened historically over the last 20 or 30 years is that the government have done things with good intentions, but they've not quite done the right thing. So with kind of introducing computing into schools in the 1980s and making sure that every class had a computer in the school is good, because you're getting computing into schools. But at the same time, the teachers weren't being trained in what to do with them. So it's kind of ended up with a situation where there are lots of teachers who sometimes don't understand as much about computing as the students do. And so, of course, that's not a very nice position to be in. And because the government put the money into the hardware and the software and not into the training, it's kind of created a situation where, we haven't really got computing, we've got ICT. And the kids are bored with ICT, but we've got loads of ICT teachers. So it's, it's quite a difficult situation to take from that kind of situation into a situation where we've got lots of confident computer science teachers. I mean, and that's going to take us some time to kind of get through a kind of transition period, I suppose we're in at the moment. But I mean, I think the government are on the right track now. We just haven't quite got there yet. But it's going to take years, unfortunately.
Hi, hello. My name is Suli. I'm working in venture capital space, focused on energy side. And I want to expand one of the questions asked by Nina. Is your name? Oh. I'm interested in technology myself. However, there's a lot of jargon there. When being thrown, a lot of jargon, you then get confused and turn you off. I really want, not for coding, but I want knowledge, kind of more like technology 101. something could tell me what kind of wording or jargons are in the same group or focus on the same kind of technology. Who is competing to who with who, which sector they're in, what they're focusing on, what applications in the real world. And that's something to learn. And I'm just wondering, is anything, any place I can go to learn those? Is anyone who break it down in some simple terms for me to understand them?
No. No, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess there's lots of information out there. But in terms of one place where you could do that, I can't actually think. Does anybody know somewhere where you can do that?
Because at the moment there's too much information.
Yeah,
if you Google it, everything come to you. You look at them, someone said the same thing or different. You don't have no background or knowledge, so you will think, sorted.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly the sort of thing that the GoTo Foundation is all about, is providing resources like that. And if you all give us some money, we'll go away and do it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you guys, thank you so much for attending tonight. We're so grateful. Sue, thank you for a great...
Can I? Oh, yep. Sorry, thank you. Can I just say, for anyone that's interested in all the Bletchley Park and campaigning and social media and traditional media stuff, I'm writing a book. So here's my book plug. It's called Saving Bletchley Park, and it's about all the various campaigns over the last 20 years to save Bletchley Park. I've just started writing it, and it's being crowdfunded, so it's at 154% now. So I will be writing it because we've got enough pledges. But if you'd like to get your name in the book and get the special edition copy, then do sign up. It's unbound.co.uk, Saving Bletchley Park.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.